because he didn't speak English until he came to Britain.
At around, I think he was age 9, so it's quite late to...
So he became an absolute master of English, which wasn't his native, his real language.
And people say, you know, what should you see, what should you read? Because I think you should read Tom Stoppard as well as seeing him on the stage. And there's travesties and there's jumpers and there's Arcadia. I would recommend Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, which is so clever. And what you're saying about language there and words, that was the genius, really, of Tom Stoppard. There's one quote I wanted to read you. Be happy. If you're not even happy, what's so good about surviving? And he's so good about life and about mortality and about the fact that life is going in one direction for all of us. Same direction. Time is the only measure. He's brilliant on that. And he's kind of very intellectual, but also really accessible.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. The video footage of 2 Afghan illegal immigrants abducting a 15-year-old girl they went on to rape is said to be so appalling it would cause riots. But in the name of public interest and public safety, should that footage now be released? Plus, is it time to declare a women's safety emergency and perhaps even bar all Afghans from Britain?
Hi, I'm Ed Davey.
And I'm Al Pinkerton.
And we've got a plan to cut your bills.
Yes, the Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey has threatened to take his chainsaw to Brexit. But with the European Union's economy sinking faster than Mr Davey after he fell off his paddleboard, have the Libs lost the plot?
And we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man, very good man.
Yeah, Tony Blair has been booted out of Donald Trump's Gaza Peace Council after a backlash from Middle Eastern leaders. Blair was once voted one of the UK's most influential PMs. Now, he's even been rejected by Gaza. Is it all over for Sir Tony? And danger to life warnings as storm Bram batters Britain, bringing heavy rain and strong winds of up to 90 miles an hour, and it's about to really kick off. We'll be out on the ground with our intrepid reporters hanging on to trees. And could it be last orders for the great British boozer, as many say that they're left on the brink by Rachel Reeves's punishing budget? A shake-up of business rates means for some boozers it will cost them tens of thousands of pounds extra in their rents every single year, and that is going down, well, back worse than that point. We'll hear from a pub landlord, and that's all coming up in your next hour. In 1993, the judge who was in charge of the James Bulger case took the unprecedented step of releasing the CCTV footage of James's abduction. It chilled the nation to our core, but it provoked a conversation about child safety and the public being the eyes and the ears of the nation to ensure we all stay safe. Yesterday, the barrister defending the 2 Afghan rapists claimed that the footage of the abduction of the 15-year-old girl was so chilling, so appalling, it could cause riots. Today, I asked the question, in the name of keeping girls and women safe in Britain, is it time to release that footage to make sure we can all make sure that our young people stay safe? Let me know your thoughts. Get in touch. gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do so. Or you can scan the QR code on your screen there now if you're technically inclined. But now it's your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good afternoon to you. 3 minutes past 3 here in the GB Newsroom. A former Children's Commissioner will chair the government's inquiry into grooming gangs. Baroness Longfield will stand down as a Labour peer to lead the inquiry, which was put on hold when 4 women quit the survivors panel and the 2 leading candidates to chair the investigation pulled out. It was first announced by the Prime Minister in June following a report into the nature and scale of group-based child sexual abuse by Louise Casey, who recommended Baroness Longfield as chair. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the inquiry won't shy away from difficult or uncomfortable truths.
The inquiry will act without fear or favour, identifying individual, institutional and systemic failure, inadequate organisational responses and failures of leadership. It will also work hand in hand with the police. Where new criminality comes to light, be that by the perpetrators or those who covered up their crimes, the inquiry will pass evidence to law enforcement so they can take forward any further prosecutions and put more of these evil men behind bars.
An Afghan national has been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in Greater Manchester. 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash is alleged to have sexually assaulted the girls in a flat in Bolton last Saturday. Police say he'd allegedly been in contact with the victims online before meeting them. The court heard Bakatash has been in the UK for 2 years and has been granted indefinite leave to remain, with his mother, 2 brothers and 2 sisters also living in the UK. The government's coming under increasing pressure to officially name the Army's top spy in the Provisional IRA during the Troubles, following a major investigation into his activities. Operation Kenova studied the work of Steakknife, known to be Freddie Scappaticci from West Belfast, who died in 2023. He was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions and worked in a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nothing Squad. The report found security services failed to act upon his intelligence time and time again, with his protection prioritised over those who should have been saved. The report's author, Sir Ian Livingstone, found evidence of extremely close relationship between Steakknife and the British state, saying Scappaticci committed the worst possible crimes and should be publicly named. The Director General of MI5 has apologised to victims and families of those who were tortured or killed by the Provisional IRA. Ukraine is preparing to present a revised peace plan to the White House as it seeks to avoid making territorial concessions to Russia. It comes after the President of Ukraine met European and NATO leaders on Monday, as the US appears to be trying to push Mr Zelensky into a deal which critics say is favourable to Russia and which allies fear would leave it vulnerable to a future invasion. Donald Trump, though, says Russia has the upper hand in peace negotiations with Ukraine and that Volodymyr Zelensky needs to get his act together and start accepting things. While efforts continue to assemble an international coalition prepared to offer military support to Kyiv in the event of a peace deal, although a number of European allies remain sceptical. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Watley spoke to GB News this morning.
That in Europe we need to play our part and be at the forefront of support for Ukraine in their fight against Russian aggression. And so Keir Starmer actually did the right thing here in getting Zelensky and European leaders together and to show the strength of our support. I think we all want to see an end to this horrible conflict, and it's crucial that it's an end that Ukraine is content with.
The Conservatives will draw a line on which health issues the state treats as disabilities in a bid to cut the UK's benefits bill. That's according to its leader, Kemi Badenoch. She says her party will carry out a full review of which conditions qualify a person for welfare support as part of plans to get Britain working again.
What last month's budget showed is that Labour have given up on people like Ruth. Last year, they raised taxes and destroyed jobs. And because of that, we now have hundreds of thousands fewer people in work. We have 1 million more people claiming universal credit since last year's budget. Not since the election, since last year's budget, 1 million more people are on universal credit. They could have done something about this. They could have changed course, they could have backed business, brought taxes down, but instead they taxed hard-working people to pay for benefits.
Meanwhile, several danger-to-life weather warnings remain in place for parts of the country, including Scotland, Wales and the south-east of England, as storm Bram continues to hit the country. Pictures here from Bournemouth Beach. Today, heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected to cause disruption across parts of the country into tomorrow morning. Strong and disruptive winds forecast for northwest Scotland, and that's likely to bring damage to buildings and homes and cause power cuts and travel disruption. Later, the Met Office says gusts of up to 90 miles an hour may happen in places, so do batten down the hatches and take care of yourselves. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 3:30.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Quick look at the markets. The pound buys you $1.33 and €1.14. The price of gold, £3,149.59 per ounce. The FTSE 100 currently at 9,651 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Aaron. To our top story today. 2 teenage Afghan asylum seekers who abducted and raped a 15-year-old girl have been given custodial sentences. Jan Jahanzeb was given 10 years and 8 months, with Isra Nizal sentenced to 9 years and 10 months for the attack which took place in Leamington Spa in May. The pair, who've been ordered to register as sex offenders for life, could now face deportation, with their victim saying the attack has changed her as a person. Our national reporter Jack Carson has been out at Leamington Spa speaking to shocked local residents.
Anything to do with rape, man or woman, is appalling. It shouldn't be happening. But as far as I'm concerned, they should get a very good sentence.
No, it was shocking. It really was shocking, and I haven't got any other words really. I mean, Leamington seems to be quite a safe place, you know, and I've lived here for a long, long time, and I've never really heard anything like this before.
I think it's awful, and I really feel for the young girl. Absolutely terrible. The government don't seem to be doing much about it at all in these cases. These cases seem to be going up more and more, and something needs to be done.
You know, I was like genuinely sort of struck by the real shock and the heartbreak amongst the locals there in Leamington Spa, and indeed many, many thousands that have been getting in touch with us here at GB News. And meanwhile, the government's Cabinet Minister Heidi Alexander was asked about the wider issue of illegal migration earlier on today.
The Home Secretary has announced a raft of new measures to tackle irregular migration to this country. I think the British people have seen that she is someone who is a serious politician and is going to crack on with this job. And I think she will be looking at a whole range of different issues so that we can make sure that we've got a robust immigration system that has integrity to it.
Well, it feels like Groundhog Day again as another young life has been destroyed. I'm joined in the studio now by the chair of the Women's Policy Centre, Paola Diana. Paola, it's always a pleasure to have your company. It always seems to be under such sad circumstances. I'm sorry about that. And I know you get very emotional about this. So do I. It broke over 24 hours ago, and I'm still very, very moved by this story. I wanted to ask you about the notion of the footage, the CCTV, the mobile phone footage that the young girl herself took. Some of it was shown as evidence. It became a hugely contentious point because the barrister defending one of the convicted rapists said it was so inflammatory it could cause riots. And it got me thinking overnight, perhaps we should show this footage, not to cause riots, but going back to the James Bulger case, James Bulger in 1993, the judge at the time, Mr. Justice Morland, he took the unprecedented decision of releasing footage of a child being abducted to, quote, facilitate an informed public debate on crimes by young children and on child abduction. I wonder, Paola, as difficult as it would be for the public to see this footage, are we now at a tipping point where people need to see the reality so we can all help to keep women and girls safe?
Yes, Martin, I agree with you. It would be hard to watch, but the people of this country need to watch these videos. We need to know how easy it is for this type of men to abduct young girls and women and to rape them and to maybe kill them. We don't know how many more cases there are. We think that there are much more because as with domestic abuse, we know the numbers are much higher because not all rape victims go to the police to denounce because they're too scared. And I believe, Martin, that this is a time to say that illegal migration is posing a national threat to women and girls, a national threat to their safety, and this is a time for our politicians to stop hiding. They have to face the reality. They have to protect women and girls in this country. Why on earth the rights of these illegal migrants, they are mainly men, coming from countries where they do not respect women's rights, are more important than the right to safety of our girls and our women? Tell me why.
I can't, because I don't know the answers. And I don't think our politicians can tell us anymore either. I think we're at the point now where the public just don't listen. They're seeing these cases, you know, week in, week out, it seems, and it's just causing a huge amount of distress.
Yes.
And, you know, when you hear things like, you know, that the girl will never be the same again.
Yes, yes, of course.
It's just, I think we're at the point now where I think people are almost beyond angry. People need to feel there's some control, there's some framework, there's some sympathy, and there's a priority for British citizens. And I just think we have to stop burying our head in the sand. How many more times can you and I have these conversations?
Yes.
Can these stories break on the national TV before we say enough is enough?
Yes, Martin, I'm a mother. And every day when my daughter goes out, I'm in fear, because I fear she might encounter one of these illegal migrants being so violent towards her. I don't care about the fact that they have a different culture. They should know that this is not the way they have to behave in this country. And also many of these people, we know they pretend to be minors. In reality, they are not. So they should be checked. We know that you need just a DNA dental check and you know the real age of a person. So that's why they need to have more severe penalties and they need to be deported to their countries. But we have to stop the borders. That's the main emergency in this country. If we don't stop the borders, these rapists, we can deport them, but then they will come back. And we know that already many of them already came back. This is a national emergency. We need to protect our women and girls.
I think you're entirely right. Paola Diana, thanks for coming in today under once again difficult circumstances, and thanks for the work you do. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced that Baroness Longfield will be chairing the Grooming gang inquiry, and here's a reminder of that announcement.
The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield. As many in this place will know, Baroness Longfield was the Children's Commissioner from 2015 to 2021. She has devoted her life to children's rights, including running a charity supporting and protecting young people and working for Prime Ministers of different political parties.
Well, let's now speak with GBNews' national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, you've already done a 3-hour shift this morning. You're still around for more. Thank you very, very much for that. Now, on the face of it, lots of good news here, Charlie. It will consider explicitly the background of offenders, including their ethnicity and their religion, and a lot of things we've heard before. Tell us about Baroness Longfield. She's obviously a woman of great integrity and experience, but she's also a Labour peer. Is that an issue?
Well, Martin, I just want to start with something I have from Home Office sources. You mentioned the background on the ethnicity and religion and culture of offenders. Well, we're being told by Home Office sources just now that this inquiry will also directly look at the motivations of perpetrators and the role of ethnicity, religion and culture in that process. And I asked that question to the Home Office because there have been some concerns I've heard about the draft terms of reference that have been published that talk about the background, but there isn't that explicit reference to motivation. So reassuring for a lot of survivors and campaigners to hear that that explicit investigation into motivations will be part of this inquiry. And that is absolutely crucial, Martin, because in so many of these cases that we've seen over the years, there has been explicit racial targeting of white girls. There has been language about clannishness with these gangs, that they're interlinked through family kinship, through religion and through overlaps in links through their families as well, linking all across the country. So reassuring update there. What we heard from the Home Secretary earlier this afternoon, putting out this inquiry now on an active footing. We know it will launch in earnest in March of next year, £65 million budget. And we also know that Baroness Longfield, a former Children's Commissioner, will be supported by an expert panel. That includes Zoe Billingham, CVE, a former inspectorate at the His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, and also from the Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust. She'll also be supported by Eleanor Kelly, CBE, CEO of Southwark Council, supported London Bridge and Grenfell Tower victims. So that'll be some reassurance to survivors that there is an expert in supporting victims of national tragedies in the past, be they the London Bridge terror attack or the Grenfell Tower fire. Focusing, we also heard, on these local investigations. Shabana Mahmood confirming that Oldham will be the first to have a local investigation which would be able to rely on the statutory powers of the national panel. Now, that's crucial because you'll remember, Martin, in January that the government committed to a local inquiry in Oldham and up to 5 other areas. Only Oldham was ever announced. Those other 5 investigations were never confirmed by the time the national inquiry was launched in June. But we have had a lot of fears expressed from survivors and their families in Oldham who have been waiting now for almost 12 months for that investigation in Oldham to launch. They now know that their local inquiry is scrapped. Instead, there will be a local investigation being led via this national inquiry. The barrister Tom Crowther, who was selected by the government to lead that previous local inquiry, he's no longer informed, so we'll wait for more details on that issue. Now, Martin, the next big question for the government, I think, is where will those other local investigations be? Because the terms of reference that have been published online express that this inquiry will not attempt to be exhaustive, and that it will not investigate every local area where grooming gangs have operated, nor every case in each local area. And frankly, on that last point, it would be impossible to do so. There have just been tens of thousands of these cases that we know of already. To investigate every local area, however, that's going to be controversial. That's not on the cards here. These targeted local investigations will clearly have to be more specific into some areas. But what's critical to understand about this scandal, of course, Martin, is that it's a national scandal. These local areas aren't isolated. They're interlinked trafficking hubs where you have organised criminal gangs moving all over the country. And when I asked Baroness Casey about that in June, was she concerned that a local investigation wouldn't capture the national picture? She said actually that was more the work of the first recommendation of her audit, which is this policing investigation led by the National Crime Agency. Operation Beacon Port will have the capability to look at those dynamic interlinking factors involved in this organised criminal operation. That'll give, she says, a better sense of the picture. It's also crucial to point out that Baroness Casey will continue to support this inquiry as it develops and launches in March of next year. Another key point from the draft terms of reference, which is still going through now here at the GB Newsroom, is that the inquiry will examine issues between the 1st of January 2000 and the setting up of the inquiry, likely, of course, to be March. Lots of questions there, Martin. Why the year 2000? Because, of course, we know this scandal stretches on for many decades before then. Will victims in Bradford from the 1980s and those who've spoken to us more recently from Tameside in the 1990s, will they now be excluded? Their stories matter too.
Well, Charlie Peters, the long march for justice for the survivors continues. Thank you for joining us as ever. Charlie Peters, appreciate your time. Now, just a reminder, the friends of GB News today can vote in today's You Decide poll for free by scanning the QR code on your screens right there. This afternoon, we're asking, will the grooming gangs inquiry get the truth? Finally, let us know. Get involved and we'll put those scores up throughout the rest of the show. Have you faith that this is finally going to get justice for survivors? Now, still to come, warnings of a danger to life as Storm Bram batters Britain, bringing heavy rain and strong winds up to 90 miles an hour. We'll be out on the ground with our intrepid reporters desperately hanging on to trees. Next, the Lib Dem leader, Ed Davey. He's threatened to take his chainsaw to Brexit. There he goes. But with the European Union's economy sinking faster than Mr Davey after he fell off his paddleboard, and the Libs lost the plot. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bo, they are under no illusion.
Ray,
Are you a human trafficker?
boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the
because
failure is...
you're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:26. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Liberal Democrats have today introduced a new bill in Parliament to create a new customs union with the European Union. Well, the party's Europe spokesperson, Al Pinkerton MP, is leading calls for Labour MPs to back the bill, claim it would cut bills and will boost the UK's economic growth by cutting red tape.
Cut the red tape!
And 3, 2, 1!
Cut the red tape!
Well, I'm joined in the studio by the Liberal Democrat MP, James McCleary. James, welcome to the studio. I understand there's just been a vote on this in Parliament, and you won. Tell us about it.
We did, Martin. It was even closer than Brexit, 50-50, 100 to 100, and it came down to the casting vote of the chair, the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, who was in the chair at the time, which by convention goes with the side that proposed the bill. So we won by one vote, so it's 101 to 100.
You're the Liberal Democrats. We'll be asking for three of the best. Asking for another referendum on it.
No, we won't. Well, we won, so no. we were really pleased with that. It was really good to be able to get it into the chamber. It's something we've been calling for a while. Last year we did the same thing with the youth mobility scheme. We put that forward, and that moved the government on that particular issue. So we're hoping, when we have a cost of living crisis, when we have a lack of growth in the economy, something pragmatic like this, going into the Commons in this way, will hopefully move the government in the right direction.
Now, James, a lot of people thought that Brexit was over, certainly the 17.4 million who voted to leave. Why do you think it's time to resurrect the ghost of Brexit even at Christmas?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we're all sort of carry the scars of that referendum, of course. I mean, we're all there. I campaigned to remain in the European Union at the time. I think why we're bringing this forward is because the government quite rightly talks about the need for growth. You know, people are struggling. We need to put more money in people's pockets. We need to find money for public services. To do that, we need economic growth. The one lever we know we have that pretty much every estimate shows that is available that would boost economic growth, GDP, by about 2% or more, is a customs union with the EU. So setting aside everything else, it is a pragmatic way of helping British businesses, giving them more people to trade with, a bigger market, and boosting growth in this country.
But if you look at the economies of the European Union, they're sinking faster than Ed Davey when he falls off a paddleboard. I mean, let's be honest, Germany is having a really, really hard time. The whole bloc has been hammered by Donald Trump's tariff scheme. In fact, the United Kingdom had a Brexit bonus of some £6 billion by not being in the tariff bloc of the European Union. All the evidence points to the fact that Brussels is a sinking ship.
Well, I mean, I think the way to look at it, I ran a small business before I was an MP, and I think one of the things to look at here is not, the growth rates of the other European economies are not the key thing. You run any business, whatever you sell, you want as many people to sell it to as you possibly can, with as few barriers to doing that as you can achieve. At the moment, we have this enormous market on our doorstep, but there are barriers that are in place that could be removed, non-tariff barriers, mostly checks and different inspections that have to happen. A customs union removes that, which gives British businesses a much larger market to sell into. So whether it's growing or not, it's still worth billions and billions and trillions of euros. You've got 400 million people there ready to buy your product. And for British businesses, that's a market they want. And that's what business is telling us.
But we never left Europe. We left the European Union. In fact, exports to and imports from Europe have increased since Brexit.
The numbers show that our trading relationship with the European Union, what businesses show us, is that there are major barriers to trade with our European partners. It's estimated that there are been 2 billion additional bits of paperwork since we left the European Union. So we're drowning in red tape. And these are small and medium businesses like the sort I used to run, who are really, really struggling to sell their products. And we can talk to the British Chambers of Commerce and others, and they show the numbers. British business is screaming out for easier trade with the European Union. And that's just the reality of it on the ground.
How do you feel when you wake up in the morning, James, and you see Ed Davey with a chainsaw? Because, I mean, let's be honest, he does very good stunts. He gets a lot, pardon the pun, cut through. Did you have any idea he was about to brandish his power tool this morning?
I did not. It was a surprise to it all. But look, Ed doing these things, as you rightly say, gets us cut through, very literally in this case, and allows us to have our message and sit here and talk to you about these important issues. So, can
I ask you, politically, there's been rumblings, certainly in this past 2 weeks, from the Labour Party. Sir Keir Starmer has been more critical of Brexit. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has been more critical of Brexit. David Lammy thinks we should rejoin the customs union, as you guys are now saying. Are you politically here trying to force Labour into the open? Are you trying to own that space to rejoin? Is this part of a big movement to wreck Brexit?
I think what we are trying to do is act as a responsible opposition party. We believe that joining or negotiating a bespoke customs union for the UK and the EU would be of huge benefit to the UK economy. It will produce jobs. It will stimulate growth. And so it's our job as an opposition party to try to move the government to the place that we think they should be. Last year, I put forward a 10-minute rule bill on youth mobility scheme. At the time, it was ruled out. Now the Chancellor is openly talking about us having a youth mobility scheme, and that would be beneficial to Britain. What we're doing is pushing the government in a direction we know would be in the interests of the British people and stimulate the growth we know we want.
So you're being politically like the nudge unit, if you like, to get Labour back towards that rejoin position. Can I ask you a question? Do you think that when we come to the general election, everyone's got a crystal ball here, will the Labour Party, do you think, suddenly come out and say, do you know what, we need to be back in? We need to get back into Brussels.
Into the European Union? I couldn't, I mean, who knows? But I think it's unlikely. I mean, honestly, Martin, when I'm out, I often am on doorsteps in my constituency, I don't get that people are sort of saying to us, look, we need to be back in the European Union today. What they say to me is, Brexit hasn't gone well, and I think that's a very widely held view.
I would agree with that.
It hasn't gone well. How can we improve where we are? And that's why we've gone for this pragmatic step, which is a customs union. It's not rejoining, and it would improve our situation economically.
James McCleary, Liberal Democrat MP, thank you very much for coming here straight from that vote. Appreciate your time. I sincerely do.
Pleasure.
Lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including danger to life warnings as Storm Bram batters Britain, bringing heavy rain and strong winds of up to 90 miles an hour. Will be out on the ground with our reporters hanging on to trees. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Hey, hello there. It's 32 minutes past 3. Let's get you up to date with the headlines. Former Children's Commissioner Baroness Longfield will chair the inquiry into grooming gangs after months of delays. The investigation was derailed in October when 4 women resigned from the survivors panel and 2 leading candidates to chair the investigation pulled out. A report into the activities of the Army's top spy inside the IRA during the Troubles has found he committed crimes of the worst possible kind and should be publicly named. Freddie Scappaticci, codenamed Steak Knife, was linked to dozens of murders and abductions and is believed to have cost more lives than he saved. An Afghan national has been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in a flat in Bolton in Greater Manchester. Police say 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash was allegedly in contact with the victims online before meeting them. 2 men have been charged in connection with a pepper spray incident at London's Heathrow Airport when 2 women were attempted to be robbed of their suitcases. It left 21 people requiring treatment. And the Met Office has issued several danger to life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England as Storm Bram continues to hit the country. Heavy rainfall and strong winds expected to cause widespread disruption. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at the top of the next hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobots really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night. And in fact, yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south, there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential, certainly across Scotland, for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas, still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland. More showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through. They're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists should be aware that the M8 near Hermiston Gate is experiencing restrictions due to a broken-down vehicle, causing notable slowdowns. The M4 Prince of Wales Bridge has significant delays from an unresolved incident. On the M18 northbound in Doncaster, 2 lanes are closed due to an accident, expected to clear by 6 o'clock. The M66 southbound has a lane closure, causing a 15-minute delay. The M49 northbound in Bristol faces heavy congestion until around 7. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are currently affected. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time now for your Great British Giveaway and your chance to win our biggest cash prize of the year, an astonishing 85 grand in tax-free moolah. All of that extra cash in the bank. That will be 2026 honours. Your old buddies here at GB News. Here's how you could win the lot.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date with an incredible £85,000 to be won. That's right, £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you with your feet up, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. £85,000 is a massive amount of money and it could be yours. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, hold on to your hats because severe weather warnings have been issued ahead of Storm Bram, which is forecast to hit the United Kingdom today and also tomorrow. Gusts of up to 90 miles an hour likely across northwest Scotland, but strong winds will be felt widely across Blighty. Let's now speak to our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie, and also GB News Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Doogie, let's get first to you there, mate. You're getting battered there in Enniskillen.
Well, actually, we had a lot worse winds earlier on, probably about 40 minutes ago. They seem to have calmed a little bit, but that's always a bit worrying because as the storm whips round, it hits us. But it has brought a lot of driving rain in, although this was the area that was put down as the amber warning coming off Sligo, off that Atlantic Ocean, down into the southwest of Northern Ireland. But it does appear that County Down, especially the Portaferry Road on the Ards Peninsula, is nearly impassable with the sea breaching the walls there out into that main road. So be careful if you're in that area. There has been a lot of closures in Northern Ireland in preparation for this. The Christmas market in Belfast, many of the other markets and lights displays to do with that festive season have really been shut down because they're afraid of those temporary porta-cabins and so forth getting caught up and causing damage. But at this moment in time in Enniskillen, it has calmed quite substantially, and we'll see what that gets like within the next hour. But Storm Bram, of course, named after Bram Stoker, he wrote Dracula not too far away from here in Monaghan, is now due, that storm is due to move up the west coast of Ireland, hitting Donegal and eventually coming out at the top end of Londonderry before crossing over to Tony in Scotland.
So Doogie Beattie there, it was named after Bram Stoker. If I go and sink your fangs into a Scotch egg and get blown into a boozer. Let's get to Tony Maguire, GB News Scotland reporter. What's it like there? Judging by your scarf, Tony, the wind's dropped a bit. That scarf should be flying out sideways.
Yeah, no, right. This is a bit like my windsock, if you like, just for our audience at home, just so you can have a little bit of feeling like being here with me. Unlike Doogie, we've not quite had our driving rain and wind. Certainly this morning we had several hours of really heavy rain, much of Scotland blanketed in rain. Of course, as that moved up all the way from South Wales and the south of England, with those two amber warnings down there ending around 10 a.m. Well, Scotland's amber warning is going to hit in around 4 o'clock this afternoon, so not long to go, and that has already been extended once through till 3 a.m. in the morning, with winds, as you say, expected up to 90 miles an hour. Here on the Clyde, however, it's a bit of a different story. We get the odd patch of blue sky, and then we have these just silent spells, which is quite interesting, given that we know what's coming. But certainly the weather across Scotland today has been really quite bad and miserable for most people. The Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, well, they've issued 32 different warnings, flood warnings across Scotland around just to be prepared. We had a supermoon recently, I was reading, and that then has had its an impact on the tide. So when the high tides impacted with the high winds, then that maybe explains why ScotRail has cancelled quite a number of Highland services this afternoon. Same with the ferries. The entire west coast of Scotland, as you know, made up by dozens, scores of islands. Well, many a ferry has been cancelled or delayed until much later, with a wait-and-see policy in place from Calmac, the operator. But for now, at least in the Central Belt, some of the rain has passed. We're still seeing some ships braving it up the Clyde as they make their way out to the Irish Sea. Be curious to see how they fare, or whether they get a port a little earlier before the business end of Storm Bram happens. And I will say that, you know, one of the most amazing spectacles I've seen is that the wind over the last half hour or so, you can maybe see it's getting a little bit darker, but the sky looks like a hyperlapse just with the speed of the cloud rushing out towards the Irish Sea. So stay with us, we'll see if I'm horizontal next hour.
Very colourful picture you paint there, Tony Maguire. Doogie Beattie, I'd like to get a quick comment for you because I want to talk about farmers. Of course, we had a record drought back in the summer, 800 million quid. The farmers were hammered for that. Now, more flooding is present. It just underlines, does it not, the huge amount of pressure on the farming community?
Well, it does, and it also makes us look at things like the spreading of slurry. That closed season from the 16th of October to the 8th of February. We need to move that. You cannot farm by the calendar. You have to farm by the weather. Many of those fields that are now being prepared to be ploughed, you drive around the countryside, you will see massive amounts of manure in the middle of those fields. They're getting ready to be ploughed, and unfortunately, because of the flooding that's going to go on, that will stop them. Also in France, many protests overnight because of cows being well, slaughtered because of what they call lumpy disease, and the French farmers are really now starting to push back on that. And as well as that, we have suspected blue tongue in Northern Ireland, and they're showing no symptoms yet, but the government here has decided to lock down farming, which is costing millions of pounds. And you've got to ask the question, really, Martin, the Mercosur agreement, Mercosur, was signed on the 18th of December last year. That will now be coming in from meat coming in from Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, 36,000 tonnes of it, and you have to wonder why are they slaughtering our own beef cattle when we're having to bring beef in?
Doogie Beattie, superb there in Enniskillen. Tony Maguire, the wind looks like it's picking up there. You're getting knocked off your feet. Use that scarf to tether yourself down for the next hit. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed. Now, coming up next, could it be last orders for the Great British Boozer, as many say that they're left on the brink by Rachel Reeves' punishing budget? We'll be down the juicer next. But meanwhile, instead of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not just the UK seeing some unsettled weather at the moment. It's also been unsettled for much of the week in Cyprus. That continues into Wednesday. And the trailing weather front from Storm Bram brings thicker cloud and some showery rain into the Canary Islands, as well as much of Iberia. This is a slow-moving weather front, so thicker cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain for much of Spain through Wednesday into Thursday. A lot of fine weather through central parts of the Med, particularly Italy, and above average temperatures for the time of year. Plenty of sunny spells.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Now, funeral directors have warned that coffins are becoming too large to be cremated as Britain's obesity crisis simply balloons. Wider caskets, extra pallbearers and bigger furnaces are now being used, with the industry saying that the rising size of the population is creating serious challenges. Well, experts now predict an estimated 3.3 million cases of adult excess weight by 2040, and it's having a huge impact on the funeral director's business. Let's speak to one now. I'm joined by the funeral director, Lee Solomon. Lee, thanks for joining us on the show. So people are now becoming too fat to fry, and you've had to come up with a novel solution to this problem.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a novel solution. If someone comes into our care and they are a larger person, then we do get a larger coffin manufactured for them. So when they come into our care, one of the first things that we do is we measure the size of our residents. And if they are a larger person, we do what we class as a bariatric coffin, which is a larger size coffin, which we get made to measure for them. If a family comes into our care and says, oh, we want our loved one to have their service at Yardley, but they're larger than 29 inches, they'd have to have their service at Yardley brought back into our care, taken to Sutton, where the cremation would happen.
So supersized coffins are sent to Sutton because they can fit into the crematorium. Am I correct in saying, Lee Solomon, that sometimes you've...
We've never gone to... I've never done that myself. I don't know about other funeral directors, but we get all of our coffins manufactured the size of the person, so they're made to measure.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that's the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
Each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Kate, Britain's Newsroom, weekday 9:30 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Pub landlords have warned that the government of dire consequences if planned business increases in their business rates come into force in 2026, saying they will face financial ruin. But pub bosses say they face financial ruin after Rachel Reeves' stealth tax raid in the budget, as pint prices are ramped up, opening hours cut and staff laid off in desperate attempts to keep the boozers running. Well, let's now speak with our reporter. Anna Riley was there at a boozer in York. Anna, I understand you're on the pole.
Good afternoon, Martin. I certainly am. That is the Belgian blue pint there. Not quite sure about the head on it, but I mean, it's not too bad. Let's give it a taste as well. Oh, delicious. What a nice pint, if I do say so myself. Of course, I'm not the landlady. Lorna Turnbull is. Lorna, thank you so much for having us here at the Bay Horse Pub in York. It's been here since 1540. Just tell us about the struggles that your industry is facing.
Well, it's been going on a long time, and the recent budget has not helped in the slightest. For me, we started off last year particularly with the lowering of the thresholds for national insurance contributions for employers. Then we've been hit with a further national minimum wage increase. Then we're now going to be hit with about a 4% alcohol duty, and then just to sort of top it off is the increase in the business rates. It's phenomenal.
And of course here in York, hospitality is one of the main trades. So if the pubs are hit hard, it's going to have a real impact on employment in the area, isn't it? And potentially visitor numbers as well.
Absolutely. You know, one of the big draws to York is the pubs, is the hospitality, and essentially, you know, that's what we're here for. And if we're not here, what else? You know, really, what we're going to draw? History, yes, but people still like to go to the pub and have a pint and a bite to eat. The other side is, if you're talking about employment, well, it's simply if we're not here to open, we can't employ.
Of course, and you feel as well that some of the smaller pubs are hit the hardest at the moment with what's happened in the budget.
Absolutely, absolutely. When people talk about business rates valuations, it tends not to be the independent publican that has kind of a say in that. It tends to be your big corporates, your pub companies, people like Stonegate, people like Green King. They're the ones who tend to be sort of pulling the strings behind these things in some way, shape or form.
And what would your message to the government be?
Message to the government? You need to get rid of the guidance that the VOA has used that has been influenced by the pub companies. They don't represent me, they don't represent the independent. They are purely corporates.
Thank you so much for having us in the pub all day, Lorna. You've been fantastic. Cheers to you, cheers to the future of your industry, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners will be out having a pint and supporting the local pub, especially in the run-up to Christmas and in the new year. Cheers, Martin.
And O'Reilly, you get all the best jobs. And I've got to say, a perfectly pulled pint. Certainly far better than David Cameron pulled a pint. That was an absolute war zone. Fantastic, Anne O'Reilly, and have a drink on me and say hello to all the locals there over up in York. Beautiful stuff. Now, coming up, the video footage of 2 Afghan illegal immigrants abducting a 15-year-old girl. They went on to rape is said to be so appalling it would cause riots. But here's my comment to you. In the name of public safety, should that footage now be released? Back in 1993, a judge took the unprecedented move of releasing the footage of the abduction of James Bulger to provoke a national conversation into safety, into child abduction. The public interest was deemed so big, he took the unprecedented move of releasing that footage, of course with the victim's full consent. Should that now be done to make us wake up to the threat facing our women and girls, and to encourage everybody to be a participant, to intervene, to help keep people safe in Britain? That's the debate next on GB News with me, Martin Daubney, on Britain's News Channel. First, so hold on to your hats. Here's your weather with Alex Deakin.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobars really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night, and in fact yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential certainly across Scotland for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland. More showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through. They're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M74 southbound between junctions 4 and 5 faces restrictions due to a breakdown. Delays occur on the M4 eastbound at the Prince of Wales Bridge after an incident. In Derby, a breakdown on the A38 northbound exit to the A6 is closing lanes. The M49 northbound from the M5 to the M4 faces congestion delays. In Medway, the M2 westbound between junctions 3 and 2 has a lane closure due to a load spillage. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has disruptions, while cross-country services might be disrupted by Storm Bram between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debates and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. Video footage of 2 Afghan illegal immigrants abducting a 15-year-old girl they went on to rape is said to be so appalling it would cause riots. But in the name of public interest and public safety, should that footage now be released? Plus, is it time to declare a women's safety emergency in the United Kingdom and perhaps even bar all Afghans from coming into Britain? And after months of delays and resignation, finally Baroness Anne Longfield has been appointed to chair the National Grooming Gang inquiry. It follows a turbulent search that saw multiple candidates drop out, and will be asking whether we can trust this inquiry to finally get to the truth.
We'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man, very good man.
Yes, Tony Blair has now been booted out of Donald Trump's Gaza Peace Council after a backlash from Middle Eastern leaders. Blair was once voted one of the UK's most influential prime ministers. Now he's even been rejected by Gaza. Is it over for Sir Tony? And there are danger to life warnings as Storm Bram batters Britain, bringing heavy rain and strong winds up to 90 miles an hour. We'll be out on the ground. Our intrepid reporters desperately clinging onto trees. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. The abduction and the rape of a 15-year-old girl by 2 Afghan illegal immigrants yesterday shocked the entire world, never alone just Britain. The footage from that abduction was deemed so volatile, so inflammatory, The barrister defending one of the rapists concluded himself its release could cause riots. Today, I put it to you, perhaps it should be released, of course, with the victim's full consent. In 1993, the judge in the James Bulger abduction and killing case took the unprecedented motion of releasing that footage to provoke a national conversation around keeping children safe and helping the public be the eyes and ears. It was painful, it was desperate, it was horrific, but it worked. I wonder, I put it to you today, is it time to do the same in this horrific case, to get the British public to wake up to what many are now calling an emergency against women and girls in our country, to shake our political class out of the stupor which makes them bury their heads in the sand, and to make all of us the eyes and ears to help, to intervene, to help keep our girls and our women safe. It's a contentious debate. Let me know your thoughts. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. You can scan the QR code on your screens right now. But now it's time for your news headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Very good afternoon to you. 3 minutes past 4. A former Children's Commissioner will chair the government's inquiry into grooming gangs. Baroness Longfield will stand down as a Labour peer to lead the inquiry, which was put on hold when 4 women quit the survivors panel, and the 2 leading candidates to chair it pulled out. It was first announced by the Prime Minister in June following a report into the nature and scale of group-based child sexual abuse. That report by Louise Casey, who went on to recommend Baroness Longfield as the new chair. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the inquiry will not shy away from difficult or uncomfortable truths.
The inquiry will act without fear or favour, identifying individual, institutional and systemic failure, inadequate organisational responses and failures of leadership. It will also work hand in hand with the police. Where new criminality comes to light, be that by the perpetrators or those who covered up their crimes, the inquiry will pass evidence to law enforcement so they can take forward any further prosecutions and put more of these evil men behind bars.
The government's coming under increasing pressure to officially name the Army's top spy in the Provisional IRA during the Troubles, following a major investigation into his activities. Operation Kenova studied the work of Steak Knife, known to be Freddie Scappaticci, who died in 2023. He was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions and worked in a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nutting Squad. The report found security services failed to act upon his intelligence time and time again, with his protection prioritised over those who should have been saved. Its author, Sir Ian Livingstone, says Steak Knife committed the worst possible crimes and should be publicly named. An Afghan national's been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in Greater Manchester. 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash is alleged to have sexually assaulted the girls in a flat in Bolton last Saturday. Police say he'd been allegedly in contact with the victims online before meeting them. The court heard Bakatash has been in the UK for 2 years and has been granted indefinite leave to remain, with his mother, 2 brothers and 2 sisters also living in the UK. Donald Trump has suggested the US could scale back its support for Ukraine and says Vladimir Putin holds the upper hand in peace negotiations. In an interview with Politico, the US president said weak and decaying European countries had failed to take action to end the war and claimed it's destroying itself through immigration. He urged Volodymyr Zelensky to play ball by making territorial concessions to Moscow. Well, Downing Street has rejected Mr Trump's accusations that Europe's failed to act, citing the UK's leadership on sanctions and efforts to assemble an international coalition of the willing. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whatley says the country must continue to support Ukraine.
Is that in Europe we need to play our part and be at the forefront of support for Ukraine in their fight against Russian aggression. And so Keir Starmer actually did the right thing here in getting Zelensky and European leaders together and to show the strength of our support. I think we all want to see an end to this horrible conflict, and it's crucial that it's an end that Ukraine is content with.
And the Met Office has issued several danger to life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of the country as Storm Bram hits. Heavy rainfall and strong winds expected to cause disruption across much of the UK today and into tomorrow morning. Very strong disruptive winds have been forecast for parts of northwest Scotland, The Met Office saying to expect damage to buildings, homes, power cuts and also travel disruption. Pictures here you're seeing are from Bournemouth Beach today. Met Office says to expect gusts of up to 90 miles an hour in places, so it's going to be pretty windy out there. Batten down the hatches and take care of yourself. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 4:30.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Quick look at the markets for you. The pound buys you $1.33 and €1.14. Gold will cost £3,149.59 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 trading at 9,651 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, 2 teenage Afghan asylum seekers who abducted and raped a 15-year-old girl have been given custodial sentences. Jahan Zeb was given 10 years and 8 months, while Isra Nazial was sentenced to 9 years and 10 months for the attack which took place in Leamington Spa in May. Now, the pair, who've been ordered to register as sex offenders for life, could now face deportation, although one of them may avoid it, with their victim saying the attack changed her as a person. Our national reporter Jack Carson has been out and about in Leamington Spa speaking to shocked local residents.
Anything to do with rape, man or woman, is appalling. It shouldn't be happening. But as far as I'm concerned, they should get a very good sentence.
It was shocking. It really was shocking, and I haven't got any other words really. I mean, Leamington seems to be quite a safe place, you know, and I've lived here for a long, long time, and I've never really heard anything like this before.
I think it's awful, and I really feel for the young girl. Absolutely terrible. The government don't seem to be doing much about it at all in these cases. These cases seem to be going up more and more, and something needs to be done.
You can sense the shock there in Leamington Spa, indeed a shock that's been replicated all around the world. And meanwhile, the government's Cabinet Minister Heidi Alexander was asked about the wider issue of illegal migration earlier on today.
The Home Secretary has announced a raft of new measures to tackle irregular migration to this country. I think the British people have seen that she is someone who is a serious politician and is going to crack on with this job. And I think she will be looking at a whole range of different issues so that we can make sure that we've got a robust immigration system that has integrity to it.
Well, let's now speak with the police and crime commentator, Danny Shaw. Danny, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. This case has clearly shocked not just our viewers, not just Britons, but indeed it's gone around the world, and it truly has appalled a lot of people looking on at what's happening to Britain. And I wanted to ask you specifically about the video footage that was taken on the victim's mobile phone, some of which was released as evidence, some of which has appeared in the national media. She clearly is asking for help. We understand in part of the footage, somebody, a dog walker, a woman, went over and spoke with them to check if she was okay, but there wasn't an intervention and the terrible crime went on to happen. Now, the barrister defending one of these convicted rapists who has seen the full footage has said that it's so appalling it could cause riots if it were to be released. Danny Shaw, I wanted to ask you if there's a greater public interest issue perhaps here to release that footage, of course, with the permission of the victim. It should never be done without their say-so. I'm looking back, of course, to the Jamie Bulger case in 1993, where Mr. Justice Morland took the unprecedented decision to release very, very concerning and shocking footage to facilitate an informed public debate around crimes and young safety. Might there be a case to release this footage?
Well, the only footage that I've seen is footage of the two attackers leading the 15-year-old girl into a secluded part of the park. and you know it's fairly grainy footage, and it's taken from sort of up high. So that's what I've seen. I'm aware that she has got some other footage that she took on her own mobile phone, I think of, you know, before the attack and the aftermath of the attack. I'm not sure what purpose that serves, to be really honest. This was a horrific attack. The details have been laid out in court. We know what happened. We've heard the victim's statement, which itself is very distressing, and is often actually more distressing than seeing the footage itself, is actually hearing in the victim's own words about the effect of what has happened. I think you have to be careful about releasing footage that would make things worse for the victim. Don't forget, it's not like it's, you know, be on the TV 1 minute and then it's off. It'll be on the internet for life, and that's her life you're talking about, and it's the way it would affect her. So I think that's the main consideration. Just, I know you talked about the James Bulger case. The footage that was shown was of the two lads abducting James Bulger from the shopping centre. There wasn't any footage that I'm aware of the attack itself, which was horrific. The details of it, you know, I've become aware of, but they're not often referred to, were absolutely horrendous. I don't think there's any footage of that. So the actual moment that the boy is abducted from the shopping centre has been seen. But, you know, graphic footage of an attack itself, I'm not sure what purpose that serves, if I'm being really honest.
The footage in question was of the young girl who took a video footage of her as she was led away, not the actual attack as I understand it. But the point of the matter is it could be edited. I'm trying to have a conversation about trying to make people out there become the eyes, the ears, and perhaps the intervention and the safety, the hero, if you like. I spoke to my kids about this last night, and every time I have to speak to my children about things like this, because I think it's my duty as a parent to try and keep them safe, I find it utterly heartbreaking that we're having these conversations again. And I just wonder, how can we try and facilitate to make everybody out there be a hero, to intervene if they see a girl in trouble, if they see something happening, to get involved. And as difficult as that may be, all I'm saying is, Danny, if we could get some of this footage out there, maybe with the girl's full permission, could we try and prevent just one disaster like this happening ever again?
Look, I mean, you know, if the victim was really happy for the footage to be released, then who am I to say it shouldn't be? But I think she and her family would have to think very, very carefully about that, because it's there on the internet forever once it's out there. So I think that's a very careful consideration. Of course, we need to make people aware of the importance of intervening, whether that's through calling the police or intervening themselves when they witness something untoward, or when they hear an attack like that. Of course, I mean, it's shocking that some people apparently sort of walked away and didn't go to her aid. But that is more about, I don't know, some sort of learning in schools about the importance of bystander intervention. It's a sort of terrible phrase, but that's what it's about, you know, about helping people, coming to people's assistance. I'm not sure that sort of presenting some footage, and some rather graphic footage in that way, is going to change people's attitudes around that. That's much more of a societal problem, I think, Martin, much more about, you know, educating people when they're younger about not just sort of standing by and letting things happen, but intervening in whatever way is appropriate in regards to a situation.
No, Danny Shaw, I don't think there's any correct answer, and there's no easy answers. It's a very, very difficult conversation. And of course, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I just think people are so upset now about what's going on, and there seems to be repetition, there seems to be pattern. I just wish we could do something about it, that's all, just to try and stop it happening ever again. And again, I know there are no easy answers, but Danny Shaw, thanks for joining us on the show. Appreciate your time, I really do. OK, let's move on. The Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced that Baroness Longfield will be chairing the Grooming gang inquiry, and here's a reminder of that announcement.
The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield. As many in this place will know, Baroness Longfield was the Children's Commissioner from 2015 to 2021. She has devoted her life to children's rights, including running a charity supporting and protecting young people and working for Prime Ministers of different political parties.
Well, what do we know about Baroness Longfield, and is she the correct choice for this hugely important role? Well, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews political editor Chris Hope. Chris, Baroness Longfield, we know, was a former Children's Commissioner of Great Authority, 2015 to 2021. She's a Labour peer. She was appointed, actually, as a peer by Sir Keir Starmer just earlier this year. Charlie Peters has been digging into some of her past utterances, and she's a committed anti-racist, dedicated to removing racial bias in the systems that are currently failing many black, brown and minority ethnic people. She's called on education leaders to commit to embedding a culture of anti-racism into the heart of their schools. With all that in mind, Chris, is she really the most suitable appointment for this case? You have to be able to see through race, ethnicity, religion in this instance. Does this make her the right person for the role?
I think it does, because I'm thinking about what was said in the House of Commons by Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. I think that Shabana Mahmood made very clear that race, ethnicity, identity can't stop where this inquiry must go. That was made very clear in House of Commons. Chris Philp recognised that, the Tory opposite number. She did write in the Times Educational Supplement about this focus on racial inclusion, as you say there. Black children can feel safe and over-policed at school. I look at her history. I think she, when she was Children's Commissioner 2015 to 2021, she did take on Ofsted on behalf of children. She took on the kind of educational blob, if you like, in favour of children. I think she was against the lockdowns because of the effect on children to a degree. She absolutely is a children-focused person. The victims we're talking about in the grooming scandal were children and are damaged adults, but they were children, and she's orientating what she's doing from the child's view backwards into the system. So I think she is the best they've got. I think she's a good appointment on what she said. Yes, she did take the Labour whip when made a Labour peer earlier this year. She's now rescinded that, and she appears to have the freedom of the Home Secretary to go where the inquiry takes her.
Can a Labour peer truly hold a Labour government to account?
She wasn't political until she took the Labour peerage this year. Labour were trying to reorientate the second chamber from being a Conservative-dominated one, as they would see it. So I know why she did that. I think she can, and she has got the permission, I think, of Shabana Mahmood to do that. I think there were key things happening this week, though. As things stand, we don't think the victims know who she was before she's appointed. She hasn't met them. Yes. We're expecting that later this week. That is absolutely vital, because as soon as she becomes in contact with the victims, it can go wrong very quickly, and that happened earlier in the summer, and that's why that meeting is so important. The second point to make is this: we have a draft terms and conditions we're going through at the moment. Those are stuck in cement, written in cement, from next March, and then it runs for 3 years. This could report on the eve of the general election. That timing mustn't slip, Martin.
Two other key questions for me. £65 million has been allocated as a budget. It's peanuts. It's peanuts in the grand scheme of things compared to the billions of pounds that this government throws at things like carbon capture or the Chagos Islands. And secondly, why is there a time limit that this only goes back to the year 2000? A huge amount of sexual abuse back in Bradford and all sorts of areas happened in the 80s and the 90s. That won't fall within the realms of this inquiry. Why not? Why don't those survivors matter?
Because they have to somehow do a swift inquiry. Yes, you could go back decades and decades into the 80s and before that, as Charlie Peters reporting has found. But if we did that, it would never end, this inquiry. They're trying to limit it to 26 years, which is a long time, quarter of a century. They are trying to, yes, 65 million, I'm sure, it may go up, and I'm speaking to Mike Tapp, the Home Office Minister, within the hour. We'll say, is that budget set in stone, or if required, will it go up? What can't happen is if the inquiry finds areas where local inquiries must take place, orders want to take place, and there's no money in the kitty. That can't happen. So it's quite important that right now the government says that's our target number from next March, but it can't be that there could be maximum limit on what we spend.
OK, let's see what Mike Tapp has to say. I'll join you in the next hour.
About 5:30, hopefully.
Superb. Thank you very much, Chris Hope. Now, just a reminder, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll for free by scanning the QR code on your screen now. And this afternoon, we're asking the big question. Will the grooming gang's inquiry get to the truth? Get involved and let us know your answer. We'll read it out before the end of the show. Now, still to come, warnings of a danger to life. A storm Bram batters Britain, bringing a heavy rain and strong winds up to 90 miles an hour. We'll be out on the ground there, intrepid reporters hanging on to trees. And also next, I'll be speaking with the Labour MP of the Great British Public, looking very much actually like GB News Rail. Now, this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to 4:25. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the branding for the brand new Great British Railways has finally been revealed, and it's no coincidence that the branding has been revealed on the same day that the Railways Bill is debated in Parliament. You can see that livery now on your screen. And this will seek to bring back the railways into public ownership. Well, the Transport Secretary, Heidi Alexander, has said this isn't just a paint job. It represents a new railway, casting off the frustrations of the past and focused entirely on delivering a proper public service for passengers. I'm delighted to join in the studio by the Labour MP for Kettering, and that's Rosie Writing. Rosie, welcome to the studio. Now, I've got a long memory, and British Rail used to be a bit pants. The trains were late, they were cold, and the sandwiches had the reputation of prison food. Tell us why Great British Railways will be nothing like that.
Well, what I hear from my constituents, and it's worth noting that I represent an area that we have a high amount of commuters, either to London or to Leicester, Nottingham. People travel very regularly from Kettering, and they don't have good things to say, whether that's on the reliability, the cost, or just the conditions when they're on the trains. I think passengers absolutely deserve to have faith in our railway systems. And the only way that we can have that accountability is by bringing them all together. Currently, there's 17 organisations that run our railways. And by having one organisation, Great British Rail, streamlining that means we can be held to account, but also we can provide that service that passengers, frankly, deserve and have deserved for a long time.
The thing that people really moan about is the price of tickets. You know, we're seeing the tubes go up in London way beyond inflation. Is the point of taking things into public ownership the fact you can guarantee that prices won't keep going through the roof?
I think that's part of the point, and that's why we made the decision to freeze rail fares. That's the first time that's been done in 30 years, and I know that matters a lot to my constituents because we've seen prices go up and up and up, and I used to commute from Kettering to London, so I know how much that can really damage your outgoings and the money that you have at the end of the month. So I think prices are part of it, but also reliability. I think when you're paying such a high price, but like often happens, a train doesn't come, or it's full, or it's delayed, that also affects your whole journey. So yes, price is part of it, but also the total customer experience.
Another curse of British Rail back in the day was constant strikes by the Labour-led unions. Is that going to come back?
Look, we made a deal, and we haven't seen the strikes on trains with a Labour government, and I think that's because we got round the table and we had discussions where the Tories just shut them out, which is why we saw the strikes under the Tories that we did.
Good stuff. Now, can I ask you, please, about the appointment of Baroness Longfield she's been appointed as the chair of the rape gang inquiry. Shabana Mahmood appointed her earlier on in Chamber. We know she's been the Children's Commissioner from 2015 to 2021, but she's also a Labour peer, appointed, in fact, by your boss, Sir Keir Starmer, in February of this year. Can we really trust a Labour peer to hold a Labour government to account?
Well, firstly, I'm really pleased to see this appointment be made, frankly, because some of the stories I think we've heard from victims are some of the most darkest stories I've heard in my time in office. And the quicker that we saw this appointment and she can meet the victims, that we can get on to finding out what happens here, and hopefully at the end of this, justice being served to those who so desperately deserve it. I think this is a good appointment, and I think her relationship with the victims in coming weeks will be absolutely crucial into getting to the bottom of this.
Shabana Mahmood said today in Chamber that this inquiry will consider explicitly the background of offenders, including their ethnicity and their religion, and whether the authorities fail to properly investigate what happened out of a misplaced desire to protect community cohesion. Of course, she's referring to the fact that for many, many years, the authorities were too afraid to speak the truth, ostensibly as Pakistani Muslim men, because they're afraid of being called racist. Are you confident that the curse of that will be put in the past and this will address the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I think the truth needs to be found out here, and for the sake of the victims, and I think it's right that we are not looking at race when we're looking at the details of things that can happen, so we can find out why this happened and make sure it doesn't happen ever again.
But we actually do need to look at race. We specifically need to be, looking at the data, and the data tells us it comes from mainly certain communities, so we need to just be truthful about that, not bury our head in the sand anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's important that throughout the inquiry, partly the reason that we're having the inquiry and it's looked at in this much detail is to find out where the failings were and why it took so long for this to come out, and those details should be re-looked at of why people couldn't speak up or didn't feel like they could, and hopefully now we've appointed a new chair, we will see progress made.
The budget set to this is £65 million. That's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things compared to the billions of pounds that the Labour government hands out to things like carbon capture overseas or Chagos Island payouts. Is that really enough money to do justice to an inquiry of this nature?
I don't think this is about, or it shouldn't be about, an inquiry as serious as this, competing with other departments. I think the money that was assigned is I'm not in the department, so I don't know the details, but I'm sure looked at is the right amount of money to make sure that this inquiry can continue and looked at in proper detail, and I think that's what we deserve. But of course, it's not just about money. You can throw money at something and not get the result you want. It's also making sure that we have that trust, a good chair that I believe we have now, and the victims are heard throughout this.
Thank you very much for your time. Always a pleasure to have your company. That's Rosie Writing, the Labour MP for Kettering. Thanks for joining us in the studio. And lots more still to come between now and 5 p.m, including danger to life warnings as Storm Bram batters Britain. Bringing heavy rain and strong winds up to 90 miles an hour. Will be out on the ground with our intrepid reporters. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Our headlines. Former Children's Commissioner Baroness Longfield will chair the inquiry into grooming gangs after months of delays. The investigation was derailed in October when 4 women resigned from its survivors panel, and 2 leading candidates to chair the investigation pulled out. A report into the activities of the Army's top spy inside the IRA during the Troubles has found he committed crimes of the worst possible kind and should be publicly named. Freddie Scappaticci, codenamed Steak Knife, was linked to dozens of murders and abductions and is believed to have cost more lives than he saved. An Afghan national has been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in Greater Manchester. Police say 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash was allegedly in contact with the victims online before meeting them. An investigation into financial support introduced during the pandemic, like furlough and Eat Out to Help Out, has found fraud and errors cost the taxpayer almost £11 billion, much of it beyond recovery. And Storm Bram has brought strong winds and heavy rain to the UK, meaning there's a possible danger to life in northwest Scotland and Northern Ireland, while nearly a month's worth of rain fell in 48 hours in southwest England. That's it for the moment. A full bulletin coming up for you at 5 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobars really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night, and in fact yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential certainly across Scotland for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland. More showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through. They're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say. Because when you talk, we listen.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. At Hermiston Gate, a broken down vehicle on M8 Junction 1 causes restrictions. Delays are reported on the M4 eastbound near the Prince of Wales Bridge. In Leeds, a collision on the A1M northbound between junctions 42 and 44 has closed one lane. In Sefton and Solihull, the A5036 and M6 Junction 4A caused 10-minute delays. Bristol's M49 northbound sees 40-minute delays. In Hampshire, the M271 northbound collision causes delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has disruptions, and Storm Bram may impact cross-country services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, just a wee reminder that friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll for free by scanning on the QR code right now there on your screen. And this afternoon, we're asking the big question: will the grooming gang's inquiry finally get to the truth? Get involved and let us know. I'll read the answer out later on in the show. Now, hold on to your hats, because severe weather warnings have been issued ahead of Storm Bram, which is forecast to hit the United Kingdom today and tomorrow. Gusts of up to 90 miles an hour are likely across northwest Scotland, but strong winds will be felt widely across Blighty. Well, let's speak now to our intrepid reporters in Northern Ireland. That's Doogie Beattie, and GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire. Who's got it worse? I think it's like you, Doogie, again. No, let's go to you, Tony. Tony, you're getting absolutely lashed and battered there. Your scarf is almost parallel to the ground. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I think pretty much like my soul, Martin, this scarf is getting a little threadbare after this day out on seeing Storm Bram. Now we're several hours in, and of course these two amber weather warnings now still sitting in west of Northern Ireland, and of course now in force up in the Western Isles up north. That's going to last all the way through until the middle of the morning, and we're going to see those 90 mile an hour gusts following the about 70 mile an hour winds. But you can imagine that's going to be constant. It's going to be a concentration all the way up the west coast of Scotland, and this is after the country has been battered by wind and rain all day. Now it's really picked up here with the darkness. It has to say that the two have gone hand in hand. I feel like we've come full circle. It hasn't been this strong since about 8 o'clock this morning. You get a real sense of the cyclical nature of this storm as it's just whipping and lashing all over the western side of Britain. Of course, down south they had it bad quite earlier, and we are, as a nation, in our pretty awful week of weather. There's going to be a lot of rain and a lot of wind. Hopefully nothing as bad as we're experiencing under Storm Bram. But of course, named after Bram Stoker, well, I can tell you that over the course of this, any more of this, Martin, and I think the storm will be sucking the life out of me, that's for sure. But of course, there's still those really quite serious danger to life warnings, especially in that amber area. But for the rest of us, you know, if you can imagine, this is a yellow warning, and I really feel like I'm having to dig in here with my feet. So, you know, if you are up there, of course, there's been lots and lots of train cancellations, lots of ferry cancellations. You know, a couple of minutes of me on screen, and you might understand why.
Tony Maguire, I'm starting to feel like I'm being cruel to you now, mate. You've been there since 8 o'clock this morning, getting absolutely lambasted by the weather. Perhaps it's fine time for you to get blown into a boozer and go and have a wee dram. Let's cross now to Enniskillen. Let's speak to Doogie Beattie. Doogie, you've also got your hood up there. You're getting lashed by the rain. Tell us all about it.
Well, I am getting lashed by the rain, and those gusts now coming into Enniskillen are becoming more frequent. Definitely Bram is well on its way. It is meant to travel right up the west coast of Ireland, right up from Cork through Sligo, which is we are not too far away from at this moment in time, then moving on towards Donegal before coming back across the top of Northern Ireland and reaching Scotland. So those gusts that we warned Tony about 2 hours ago are now with him. I'm glad to see my Celtic cousin getting an absolute pasting, because it's usually me on a Saturday morning. And yeah, Northern Ireland has been locked down basically today. Most of the Christmas markets and so forth were cancelled in anticipation of this storm coming. The east coast, actually in round the Portaferry Road area, I'm told, is the waves are breaching the walls there and flooding out the road, so be very careful if you're passing there. But really it's not the worst of the winter storms yet, but it's never a good sign. You know, coming from the countryside myself, I was always told if the holly berries are out in the tree before Christmas, it's going to be snowy, and if the ash comes before the oak, you're in for a soak. It definitely is holding up at this minute in time for that old saying coming around. And by the way, Martin, we're full of joy, Tony and I, that you're sitting in a lovely warm studio in London and you've kept us here all day long. Saturday night, the pints are on you.
Well, Dougie B, if you're not careful, I'll keep you up for another hour. But on a serious point, Dougie, I want to ask you about farming, because the farming community is always getting impacted by all of this. There'll be so much standing water, so much flood water. It's already been a very, very difficult year for the farmers there in Northern Ireland.
Yes, it has been, and this type of weather, we're not unused to it, you know. I mean, it is a regular occurrence, but it's not doing us any good at the moment with farming, not only in Northern Ireland, but right across Europe at this minute in time. Farming is becoming under particular stress, especially with the Mercosur agreements being signed, and now our own beef herds coming under things like blue tongue and lumpy disease, as they call it, in France, and many of the cattle there are being slaughtered right when we are meant to receive tariff-free beef from Mercosur. You'd almost think it was planned, and those herds were being slaughtered right across Europe. Of course, we then have to buy lots of that beef, but farmers are under real pressure at the moment, and this is in the time when most of the manure would be dumped into the fields, left to soak into the fields, and then ploughed into the fields, hoping that the frost will do the damage. Nature working with the farmers, of course, to kill off anything that's in the land. Unfortunately, with this type of rain coming in now, lots of those fields will be washing out into the roads. Be careful if you're on those back country roads, because of course it will wash out of gateways and down the roads and make driving conditions very hazardous indeed. But farmers really need a hand at this moment in time inside Great Britain. Many of them under stress, of course, with the inheritance tax and, of course, other pressures put on them to meet net zero targets, what is going to push the price of our food completely through the roof.
Okay, you boys have really done a shift today. Thank you very much for being so resilient and you're full hardy out there. Dougie BT, Northern Ireland. Hey. Tony Maguire there almost got taken away. That scarf is now turning into a parachute. Tony, stay safe. Use that scarf to tether yourself down to the nearest tree. Now, coming up next, we'll be discussing this.
And we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man, very good man.
Yes, that man, Tony Blair, has been booted out of Donald Trump's Gaza Peace Council after a backlash from Middle Eastern leaders. Blair was once voted one of the UK's most influential prime ministers. Now he's even being rejected by Gaza. Is it all over for Sir Tony? First, if you're in search of some holiday sun to escape from Storm Bram, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's not just the UK seeing some unsettled weather at the moment. It's also been unsettled for much of the week in Cyprus. That continues into Wednesday. And the trailing weather front from Storm Bram brings thicker cloud and some showery rain into the Canary Islands, as well as much of Iberia. This is a slow-moving weather front, so thicker cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain for much of Spain through Wednesday into Thursday. A lot of fine weather through central parts of the Med, particularly Italy, and above average temperatures for the time of year. Plenty of sunny spells.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's.
news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Yeah, so when I was 5 years old, one of my family members' friends was looking after me one day, like babysitting me. And then on that day, it was a well-trusted friend of our family, was babysitting me and took me upstairs and he raped and abused me. So from then on, I've suffered and suffered. One of the things that he did say to me was that he would kill me or hurt me in my sleep. So ever since then, I've always suffered with PTSD, night terrors. It never goes away.
It took 20 years for you to face it to
20
this.
years, yeah, to ever come out about what had ever happened to me. My parents didn't know, I didn't tell them anything.
Because a lot of men in your position, a lot of boys in position, they'd rather just take the burden of shame on. That comes at a great, can come at a great cost.
Yeah, lots of friends and family. And I was just scared to tell them, you know, because obviously as well, if I did ever say anything about it, he was going to come and get me. So I managed to find an organisation which is charity run called Arch Teesside, which is near where I live. And I went to go see them. And my therapy at the time, the guy was called Dave Taylor. And he was a big guy, full of tattoos. And, you know, when you see somebody, you think, how am I going to open up to somebody of this man, you know? And I hit it off, like, straight away. And I've always told him, this is what I love doing. I love going to the gym. I want to step on stage by the time I'm 40. And then that's what I went and did.
And look at you there. I mean,
that's what modelling shots, yeah.
You said in your book there, hold your book up, people want to get a copy of this book. Tell them what it's called, mate.
Buy the book.
What's the book called, mate? Tell them.
It's called Breaking the Silence, A Champion's Journey.
And this is it. And your message that you say, if you help one other person out there to channel their pain into purpose, mission accomplished, mate.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 5. Hope you're keeping safe out there with Storm Bram battering in. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, just a few months ago, the US President Donald Trump said this on his peace plan for Gaza.
And we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man, very good man.
Well, Tony Blair, once a very good man, according to Donald Trump, the apple of his eye. But now, in a dramatic turn of events, Sir Tony Blair has reportedly been dropped from the US President's proposed so-called Board of Peace for Gaza after objections from several Arab and Muslim nations. Well, the former PM had been linked to a major role in a transitional authority, but critics questioned his record and his legacy, and perhaps for some good reason. Well, joining me now to discuss this is a political strategist, Pablo Ohana. Pablo, always a pleasure to have your company. Are you surprised that's the Prime Minister who was in charge during the invasion of Iraq, and then the Prime Minister who was involved in the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001 isn't particularly the flavour of the month amongst the current leaders in the Middle East?
No, honestly, when I read the story about Blair being involved a couple of weeks ago, I was genuinely really surprised. I thought exactly the same. Given his roles in Iraq, it seems quite extraordinary. I mean, listen, to his credit, Blair and his team, people like Mo Molam around him, did an extraordinary job in Belfast, and there's no taking away from that. He has made fantastic progress there, and it has lasted, I think, probably better than anybody could have ever imagined. But, as you say, in fairly major things like the Iraq War, which we now know to have been we basically, the UK and US kind of misled the whole world on that. It's not that surprising that people in Gaza and around, the Arab nations might be feeling a little uncomfortable about having Tony Blair back in the driving seat.
I often wonder to myself, Pablo, and perhaps you do, why can't Tony Blair just retire? He doesn't need the money. He's got the Tony Blair Foundation. He's got his fingers in many, many pies. Why on earth would he want to get involved in peace in the Middle East? Is it a legacy thing? Is it an ego thing? What is it?
It's probably a little mix of everything. I think former prime ministers like to have a public role. I think they like to see themselves as people who have not finished their service to the country, and I guess in Tony Blair's case to the wider world. It is a slightly odd position at the moment for him to be so heavily involved. As I say, I mean, for me, I would just never be able to square that circle of having, had that really critical role in the Iraq war, which we know now was just so disastrous, and still trying to be involved in something like this seems a little out of place. But as you say, I'm not quite sure why he doesn't focus his efforts elsewhere. His institution, to his credit, has done great things elsewhere. Just, this might be one issue that he needs to maybe step back from.
Now, Pablo, there could be an unexpected side result from this, and it could be that with time in his hands now, not involved in Gaza, Sir Tony might turn his attentions towards meddling in British democracy. We were reading just this week he wants to get it more involved. He's frustrated with Sir Keir Starmer. He wants to try and pull the Labour Party back into that centre ground. Do you think we might see Sir Tony Blair as the puppet master behind the scenes here in Westminster?
Well, I mean, it would be interesting, wouldn't it? We've seen various interventions from Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. I'm not entirely sure how much it has helped Keir Starmer's position right now. His government is obviously struggling. It was interesting that when Keir Starmer's government came in, there was all this talk about all these old hats, are coming into number 10, all the kind of people from Blair years, the people who really know what they're doing. And I mean, listen, as a communications professional, I don't think I've seen very much good communications from this government. I mean, even when they have done what they've said they're going to do, when they've delivered on their manifesto, when they've done good stuff in the eyes of, Labour voters and Labour members, they've still communicated it so badly that you wouldn't know it's been done. So I'm not quite sure what more the people around Blair and Blair himself might have to offer, but it will sure be interesting to see.
Pablo Ohana, I could see the chill there run down your spine at the prospect of Tony Blair being the ghost of Christmas past, coming back into British politics. It's a pleasure to have your company, as always. Political strategist Pablo Ohana, thank you very much for joining us today on the show. Blair, might he come back? Many think never actually probably went away. Now, coming up next, the video footage of two Afghan illegal immigrants abducting a 15-year-old girl that they went on to rape is said to be so appalling it would cause riots. Here's the big question today, though. In the name of public interest and public safety, should that footage now be released? Will that help Britain to stay safer? This is GB News, Britain's news channel. First, so, hold on to your hats. It's time for your weather. Storm Bram is here, and here is Alex Deakin.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobars really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night, and in fact yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential certainly across Scotland for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland, more showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through, they're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M74 southbound at Junction 3 on-slip faces restrictions due to a broken-down vehicle. The M4 eastbound on the Prince of Wales Bridge is seeing an incident causing long delays. In Bedford, the A421 northbound between the A4280 and the A1 faces a lane closure, expected to resolve by 6 this evening. The M27 northbound between junctions 1 and the M27 endures collision delays, with one lane shut. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services face disruptions due to Storm Bram today. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with, each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's show. The video footage of 2 Afghan illegal immigrants abducting a 15-year-old girl they went on to rape is said to be so appalling it would cause riots. But in the name of public interest and public safety, should that footage now be released? Plus, is it time to declare a women's safety emergency and even bar all Afghans from entering into Britain?
No two-tier policing. There is policing without fear or favour.
And guess what? A damning new report out today has concluded that two-tier policing does in fact exist and has recommended Sadiq Khan be stripped of his powers as London's Police and Crime Commissioner, with the Metropolitan Police accused of favouring woke protesters and even Muslims over Jews. Is it time to put them into special measures? And after months of delays and resignations, Baroness Anne Longfield has been appointed to chair the National Rape Gang Inquiry. It follows a turbulent search that saw multiple candidates drop out, and will be asking whether we can trust a Labour peer to mark the Labour Party's own homework.
And we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Good man, very good man.
Well, Donald Trump might think Tony Blair's a good man, but people across the Middle East don't. Tony Blair's been booted out of Donald Trump's Gaza Peace Council after a backlash from Middle Eastern leaders. Blair was once voted one of the UK's most influential prime ministers. Now he's even been rejected by Gaza. Is it all over for Sir Tony? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Do you remember how the Prime Minister and practically everybody in the Labour Party told us two-tiered policing doesn't exist? Stop being racist. Stop being divisive. It's simply an illusion, a fantasy of the far right. Except today, a new report out by Policy Exchange has concluded that there is two-tiered policing, and the worst place is London. The Metropolitan Police standing by, like allowing the wokerati Just Stop Oil to block streets while working class people try to get to work, and then soft-soaping the pro-Palestine protesters and allowing them to ransack through Jewish neighbourhoods. Particular scorn has been poured upon the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. It's recommended he's stripped of his powers, particularly around stop and search. Remember, Sadiq Khan repeatedly said it was racist. Well, dropping it has helped increase crime. The Metropolitan Police should be put into special measures, and Sadiq Khan should get the boot. That's the conclusion of a report that concludes that two-tier policing is a thing after all. Isn't it funny? We said that all along here on GB News. Now, get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Or you can use that QR code on your screens now if you're that way inclined. First, search your headlines. Here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good evening to you. 3 minutes past 5 in the GB Newsroom. A former Children's Commissioner will chair the government's inquiry into grooming gangs. Baroness Longfield will stand down as Labour peer to lead the national inquiry, which was put on hold when 4 women quit the panel, the survivors panel, and the 2 leading candidates to chair the investigation pulled out. It was first announced by the Prime Minister in June, following a report into the nature and scale of group-based child sexual abuse by Louise Casey, who recommended Baroness Longfield for the chair. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the inquiry won't shy away from difficult or uncomfortable truths.
The inquiry will act without fear or favour, identifying individual, institutional and systemic failure, inadequate organisational responses and failures of leadership. It will also work hand in hand with the police. Where new criminality comes to light, be that by the perpetrators or those who covered up their crimes, the inquiry will pass evidence to law enforcement so they can take forward any further prosecutions and put more of these evil men behind bars.
MI5's been accused of impeding an inquiry into the activities of the double agent Steakknife, who murdered for the IRA during the Troubles. Operation Kenova has concluded the security services helped Freddie Scappaticci evade justice from a perverse sense of loyalty. Steakknife, who died in 2023, was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions and worked in a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nutting Squad. Well, the report found security services failed to act upon his intelligence time and time again, with his protection prioritised over those who should have been saved. Its author, Sir Livingston, says Steakknife committed the worst possible crimes and should be publicly named. An Afghan national has been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in Greater Manchester. 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash is alleged to have sexually assaulted the girls in a flat in Bolton last Saturday. Police said he'd been in contact with them allegedly online before meeting them. The court heard Bakatash has been in the UK for 2 years and has been granted indefinite leave to remain, with his mother, 2 brothers and 2 sisters also living in the UK. An investigation into financial support introduced during the pandemic has concluded the majority of almost £11 billion of taxpayers' money is beyond recovery. The report found schemes like Eat Out to Help Out and Bounce Back loans were hastily introduced and susceptible to fraud and error. Furlough and help for self-employed, set up under the Conservative government, suffered £5 billion worth of fraud alone. It's almost the same amount the government spends every year on the entire justice system. 2 men have been charged in connection with an incident at London's Heathrow Airport which left 21 people requiring treatment. A 30-year-old Tyrone Richards and 24-year-old Anton Clark Butcher have each been charged with 2 counts of robbery and 2 counts of administering a noxious substance suspected to be pepper spray following the incident at a car park in Terminal 3 on Sunday. The Met. Police say officers were called there around 8 a.m. following reports that people were being assaulted. 21 people were treated at the scene, including a 3-year-old girl. 5 people were taken to hospital. Donald Trump has suggested the US could scale back its support for Ukraine and says Vladimir Putin holds the upper hand in peace negotiations. In an interview with Politico, the US president said weak and decaying European countries had failed to take action to end the war and claimed it is destroying itself through immigration, Europe that is. He urged Volodymyr Zelensky to play ball, making territorial concessions to Moscow. Downing Street rejected his accusations, saying Europe's taken leadership, especially the UK, on sanctions and efforts to assemble an international coalition of the willing during meetings at Downing Street yesterday. And the Met Office has issued several danger to life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England as storm Bram continues to hit the country. Heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected to cause disruption across many parts of the country today and into Wednesday morning. Amber weather warnings for strong and disruptive winds have been issued for northwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Damage to buildings, homes has been predicted with power cuts and travel disruption expected. The Met Office says winds of 70 to 80 miles an hour are likely for a few hours later, and some places may get gusts of up to 90 miles an hour. That's your headlines. I'll be back with more at 6.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Quick look at the markets. The pound buys you $1.33 and a euro 14. Gold will cost £3,163.39 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 stopped trading a short time ago at 9,647 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, 2 teenage Afghan asylum seekers who abducted and raped a 15-year-old girl have been given custodial sentences. Now, that's Jahan Zab was given 10 years and 8 months, with Isra Nazal sentenced to 9 years and 10 months for the attack, which took place in Leamington Spa in May. The pair, who've been ordered to register as sex offenders for life, could now face deportation, although one of them apparently is trying to dodge that, with their victim saying the attack changed her as a person, perhaps forever. Well, the government cabinet minister, Heidi Alexander, was asked about the wider issue of illegal migration earlier on today.
The Home Secretary has announced a raft of new measures to tackle irregular migration to this country. I think the British people have seen that she is someone who is a serious politician and is going to crack on with this job. And I think she will be looking at a whole range of different issues so that we can make sure that we've got a robust immigration system that has integrity to it.
OK, now let's speak to my next guest, and that's the politics and the culture editor at A Further Inquiry, and that is Khadija Khan. Khadija, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. I wanted to ask you a question that I've been asking previous guests throughout the afternoon. I was so moved and distressed by what happened to this 15-year-old girl at the hands of these 2 Afghan rapists. Some of the footage that came out, CCTV footage from the park, was distressing in itself. But we understand the footage that the girl took herself of her abduction, it lasted some 3.5 minutes, was deemed to be so inflammatory, so gross, it could spark public riots. But I wondered if we're at the point now, Khadija, where the public deserves to see and know the full truth. And I wonder if we should think about releasing this footage to keep people safe. I'm mindful of the fact of the Jamie Bulger case from 1993, when the judge there, Justice Morland, took the unprecedented decision to release that footage to help inform a wider public debate around safety. Are we at the position now where we should have that debate to try and keep this from happening again, to try and keep British women and girls safe?
First of all, what happened is appalling, and there is no justification for these criminals' presence in this country. My thoughts are with the victim and her family, and the account of the victim is heart-wrenching, and I think it should be a wake-up call for the authorities and for the British public. I mean, what we are talking about a crime, and it was very astonishing to see the judge, to read about it when judge made these remarks that there, in a very benign way, that there are some cultural differences where these two young men have come from. I think this banality of naivety is just staggering, because rape is not a culture, rape is a crime. What we are talking about is a scorching silence, stigma for victims, and lack of legal protection in a society where there is no concept of consent and the age of consent. So we are talking about this culture, and any culture that violates women's rights or perpetuates women's rights violation, it forfeits its right to our respect. This is what we are talking about here. I think the British public, women and girls, they have a right to be informed what's going on in this society, and protecting the identity of the culprits or perpetrator in such gruesome cases. I would say it's a travesty of justice.
Khadija, you talk there a lot about culture. May I ask you a blunt question? Are we importing cultures from around the world that are simply incompatible with our own, particularly when it comes towards attitudes towards women and cultural misogyny?
The thing is that I have always said that all cultures are not equal, because I have seen both sides of the words. I was born and raised in a society which was very conservative, and the culture was very misogynistic and deeply discriminatory towards women. And now I live here in the West, in the UK, where I see the culture where I'm not saying that we don't have a problem related to violence against women and girls. However, we as a society, we denounce all manifestation of violence against women and girls. There is no justification, whether it is religious or cultural, that comes from any part of this country or any section of this society to justify violence against women and girls. However, there are certain cultures, such as in Afghanistan, which is deeply influenced by religious teachings which are inherently discriminatory and misogynistic, and these religious and cultural beliefs, they impose unwarranted, detrimental and undesirable restrictions on women, and the standards of piety and the honor which are placed on women and girls, they are just staggering, and they are not humanly possible to be met. So this is what we are dealing with here. This is a culture that is misogynistic, and these men who are coming from here, from these cultures, then obviously they are raised, in that culture. They know that the women has no place in social and political discourse, and there is no consent when it comes to women. I mean, just for an example, there is when we are talking about religious belief, there is no concept of marital rape in Islam, in a society that is very much influenced by Islamic belief. This is Afghanistan and Afghan society. So when we talk about women and girls' rights, we have to be aware that Britain has been known as a soft touch in terms of immigration. However, now it has become a soft touch when it comes to protect its women and girls.
I think you're right. I think you're right, and I'm sad you're right, but I think you are right. And thanks for your forthrightness and your honesty. That's the politics and culture editor at a further inquiry, Khadija Khan. Thanks for joining us today on GB News. Now, moving on, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood today announced that Baroness Longfield will be chairing the grooming gang inquiry. And here's a reminder of that announcement.
The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield. As many in this place will know, Baroness Longfield was the Children's Commissioner from 2015 to 2021. She has devoted her life to children's rights, including running a charity supporting and protecting young people and working for Prime Ministers of different political parties.
Well, the long battle for justice of survivors rumbles on, and let's now speak with GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Olivia, welcome to the studio. Baroness Longfield is a Labour peer, appointed by Sir Keir Starmer in February of this year. Can we trust a Labour peer to hold the Labour government to account? And also, as I understand it, Baroness Longfield hasn't even met with the survivors yet. Do they have any faith in this appointment?
Well, on the question of Baroness Longfield, I think it's a really interesting one. On the one hand, yes, she is a Labour peer and she has been working in the past. She's talked a lot about her anti-racist work. There could be a potential difficulty there. Is she going to really be prepared to get her hands dirty and get into the racial and religious elements of these atrocious crimes, which is obviously such an important aspect of this inquiry? On the other hand, I have spoken to Conservative figures who actually really like and respect Anne Longfield for the work that she did as Children's Commissioner. She was a very early and very enthusiastic advocate of easing lockdown restrictions. She was very anti-masks in schools, for example. She was very, very anti the removing the teeth from Ofsted. She wanted Ofsted to be a powerful institution that it always was, and she stood up to the unions on that. So she does have some respect on all sides of the House. The problem is, of course, she is a Labour peer, and one of the survivors, one of the very vocal survivors, Fiona Goddard, has already said that she doesn't think that the process can be truly independent now that a Labour peer has been appointed. Now, in the lobby briefing that I went to this afternoon, the government spokesperson said that in her capacity as the chair of this inquiry, Anne Longfield will be acting completely independently. But of course, technically, she might be independent. Will the survivors really believe that that Labour bias won't sort of bleed into the findings that she comes up with?
Olivia, also Brexit is back in the news. The Liberal Democrats today wielding their chainsaws, promising to cut through red tape. I had a Liberal Democrat MP in the studio earlier on. There was a vote on this in Parliament, and I'm hearing a lot of Labour MPs abstained because they are now warming towards the idea of cancelling Brexit and rejoining the European Union.
I think this is really interesting. On the one hand, you could say sort of same old, same old. The Lib Dems have always wanted to rejoin the EU. But why are they saying it now? Well, they're saying it now because they believe that there is a weak spot in the Labour Party. I have spoken to Labour MPs who genuinely believe they are really desperate for growth. We know that Rachel Reeves's budget did very little to deliver any growth. They want growth, and the way they think they can achieve growth is by rejoining the customs union. Now, there are potential successors to Keir Starmer who are openly saying that they would like to rejoin the EU. And Keir Starmer is very, very aware that there are vultures circling looking for his job, and some of those vultures are very keen on rejoining the EU. Now, when I asked about it in our afternoon lobby, the spokesman said again that there is a red line. We will not be rejoining the customs union or the single market or the European Union. But Keir Starmer knows that people who want his job would like to see that done. Keir Starmer knows that lots of his backbenchers, as you say that, although they won't say it publicly, would quite like to see Britain joining the EU. So is he going to shift his position in order to see off some of those challenges? And let's not forget, sometimes we sort of laugh at the Lib Dems as an ineffective force in Parliament. They do have 72 MPs. That could be very, very valuable. You wouldn't need all of Labour to support rejoining, for example, the customs union or the single market in order to get a vote through Parliament. We're not there yet. As it stands, the Labour are saying that they are going to hold true to their manifesto commitments, but Keir Starmer is looking weak and vulnerable at the moment.
Well, Olivia, at least Keir Starmer has changed position on many things in the past. Might the ultimate shift of position be on Brexit? Thanks very much for joining us today in the studio. Brexit's back in the news. Now, this afternoon, we've been asking you all afternoon, will the grooming gang's inquiry get to the truth? And the results are in. Only 4% of you have faith it will get to the truth, and 96%, a huge majority, say no, you have no faith in this latest version of the rape gang inquiry. Just 65 million quid assigned to this. Is it going to be enough? Will it go back in time enough? It only goes back to 2000. What about crimes that happened before that? So many questions to ask, and the huge and long pursuits for justice for survivors. Now, friends of GB News can vote in the You Decide polls for free by scanning the QR code on your screen right there now. We've got some breaking news for you now, and it says a member of the UK Armed Forces has been killed in a tragic accident whilst observing the testing of new defensive capability in Ukraine. The Ministry of Defence has just said, just to repeat that, breaking news, a member of the UK Armed Forces has been killed in a tragic accident whilst observing the testing of new defensive capabilities in Ukraine. The Ministry of Defence has just announced. We'll try and bring you some updates on that throughout the rest of the show. Now, coming up next, we'll also be discussing this.
There's no two-tier policing. There is policing without fear or favour.
That's Sir Keir Starmer saying there is no two-tier policing, but guess what? A damning new report out today has concluded that two-tier policing does in fact exist, and he's even recommended stripping Sadiq Khan of his powers as London's Police and Crime Commissioner, with the Met accused of favouring woke protesters and even Muslims over Jews. Is it time to put them into special measures? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:25. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a damning new report out today from the Policy Exchange has delivered a stinging verdict, and it's claimed that the Metropolitan Police Service has adopted a so-called two-tiered policing approach, favouring protest groups over public safety. Now, the report even calls on the London Mayor, Sir Sadiq Khan, to be stripped of his powers and urges special measures to be imposed on the floundering Metropolitan Police Force. Well, Sir Keir Starmer denied there was two-tier policing all along. The report says otherwise. And joining me now to discuss this is the former Police and Crime Commissioner, Festus Akemboussier. Welcome, Festus. Always a pleasure.
Pleasure.
So, this report is withering. It says there is two-tier policing in how the protests, the pro-Palestine protests, were soft-soaped versus other protests. But let's go back in time. When the Metropolitan Police took the knee to Black Lives Matter, it was abundantly clear there was two-tier policing.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, I think that was definitely the wrong decision for those officers to take the knee. There are ways to show your solidarity if you want to, but not when you're in police uniform. Your job, when you're in the uniform, is to enforce the law without fear or favour. That was the wrong decision, in my opinion. I was quite public about that when I was Police and Crime Commissioner, making sure that in Bedfordshire at that time, that was not going to happen if there were any protests there. It was the wrong thing, and I think it just sent the wrong message at that time.
And when we look at this report from Policy Exchange today, it's called A Long Way to Go. It claims that Scotland Yard is due to prioritise the rights of protesters over the rights of the wider public. And Festus, that's something else that's frustrated our viewers all along. How can people sit down from Just Stop Oil and stop ordinary people getting to work?
I mean, when you have a situation at the moment where since 2016, where at that particular time, the level of public confidence in London by Londoners in the police was about 69%. This is now plummeted to 45%. That has got to send hairs racing in MOPAC, in the Mayor's Office for Police and Crime, and for the Mayor as well, and indeed for the Commissioner. Now, I know some absolutely amazing police officers in the Met. They do a great job. They really want to protect their communities. However, when you've got this level of issues, someone is going to be asking the question, why is this happening and why now?
The report concludes that the forces of law and order have lost control of the streets and yielded control to the mob. They're particularly here talking about the pro-Palestine protests, and they claim in this report that the police force appeared to favour Muslims over Jews.
I mean, this has been a constant issue that people have been raising all the time. I think there is some credence, some of those claims. But look, like I said before, and I say it again, policing is a very, very difficult job. And, you know, you're never going to win for even trying, but at least you've got to try and address the perception of being biased. And the way you do that is not by gaslighting people and telling them that, you know, they're just making up stuff or they're scaremongering and trying to divide communities. Actually sit with the people who are raising these issues and try to see things from their point of view. I think that is the job of a mayor, not to pick sides. You have got to listen to people who are raising very legitimate concerns and try to address those.
Now, Festus, you mentioned there the Mayor of London. A lot of people might not know watching this show, but the Mayor of London, Sir Sadiq Khan, is the de facto Police and Crime Commissioner. He's in charge of law and order when it suits him, but not when it doesn't. But this report specifically is withering about his politically motivated choice, as this report concludes, to cut back on stop and search. It says that that's had a catastrophic impact on the fight against crime. Is Sadiq Khan responsible for that?
You are right. The Mayor of London is the Police and Crime Commissioner for London. So it was my equivalent, effectively, in another part when it comes to policing. The reality is this: you are not going to keep people safer if you, as a mayor with political responsibility and oversight of policing, you're pretty much telling the police to stop doing stop and search or to reduce stop and search. During my term, I'm proud to say that we actually doubled stop and search. Overall crime fell, and the amount of people who were being arrested for carrying weapons, that also increased. The thing is this, in London, the stop and search between 2016 and 2024 has more than halved in terms of the prevalence of those. Over the same period, knife crime has increased. On a positive side, in the last 12 months or so, homicides have fallen in London and the amount of violent offending has fallen. But if you look at the longer-term trend, it ain't good at all. And stop and search, done properly, is an amazing tool for keeping people safe. And we need to see more of it being done in London for sure.
Festus, you're always channeling common sense. It's a pleasure to have your company in the studio once again. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, a couple of rights of reply to read out here. The Metropolitan Commander, Hayley Stewart, has told GB News this. Our new Met for London plan is delivering significant improvements on the issues that matter most to our communities, and crime is falling across London. Despite a £260 million funding gap and amid a shrinking Met, we are protecting neighbourhood policing, response policing and public protection so we can be there where and when the public needs us. And meanwhile, a spokesperson for the Mayor of London has told GB News this. Nothing is more important to the Mayor than keeping London safe, and he continues to lead the way by being tough on crime with a record £1.16 billion support for the police this year alone, and tough on the complex causes of crime through the country's first violence reduction unit, which is leading an approach rooted in prevention and also in intervention. Thanks once again to Festus, and plenty more coming up through the rest of the show. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, as I always say, please stay safe, especially during Storm Bram. And here's your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Drivers crossing the M90 Friarton Bridge should exercise caution due to high winds. The A4042 is closed both ways from Little Mill to Abergavenny Hardwick roundabout. On the M49 southbound between the M5 and the M4 junction, there are 40-minute delays in Bristol. The M25 anti-clockwise entry slip at junction 12 in Surrey has 10-minute congestion. In Bedford, a broken-down vehicle on the A421 northbound has closed one lane. Normal traffic conditions are expected by 6:50, and on the trains, Avanti West Coast faces disruption, and Storm Bram may affect cross-country services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobars really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night, and in fact yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential certainly across Scotland for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland. More showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through. They're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates,
lively conversation,
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
and each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce,
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 25 to 6. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now I'm joined in the studio by GB News political editor Chris Hope for further discussion on that grooming gangs inquiry. Chris, you've just got back from interviewing the Immigration Minister, Labour Party, Mike Tapp. We wanted to ask him about the political neutrality or lack of the Labour peer, the previous Children's Commissioner Baroness Longfield, who's been appointed. Mike Tapp spending a lot of time arguing with Zia Youssef on social media since they appeared both together on BBC Question Time last Thursday.
And your friend Lee Anderson, very keen to debate. So come on the channel, Mike Tapp, whenever you want to come on. And so, you know, he's now controlled a bit more by the Home Office now, as Home Office Minister, but of course the MP for Dover. Yeah, we got some good admissions there from Mike Tapp. As you'll see in the interview shortly, if they need to raise more money, 65 million is capped. As you said earlier, that's not a lot of money. They will find more money to ensure the victims can get justice. They will bring it to an end in March 2029. Going back before 2000, they did say also they could even extend that further. It's a draft terms and conditions. We'll see shortly.
Here it is. Let's go to it now.
Mike Tapp, you're the Immigration Minister for the Home Office. Thank you for joining us today on GB News. When did you tell grooming gang victims about the appointment of Baroness Longfield?
Well, look, firstly, I just want to make it really clear how important today is, and this is about the victims. Now, I've worked in the National Crime Agency before, and the one thing that stayed with me was searching the room of a grooming victim to find evidence. And when we talk about this and when we're in the chamber today, I kept going back to that because this is purely about the victims. And on your question, Chris, the victims will be meeting with Baroness Longfield later this week.
So they haven't met her yet. They didn't know she was being appointed until it was told to Parliament. Are you worried that meeting might not go down well? It's so important that you carry their support. They can trust Baroness Longfield.
I'm really confident that Baroness Longfield will get that trust. You have to earn trust, and I'm really confident she will. We've got to remember she was the Children's Commissioner under the Conservatives, and she's very capable. She was appointed to the Lords off of her track record for protecting children, so I'm confident she'll do a very good job here. This is about the victims, but it's also about uncovering those injustices and coming to the truth, because without truth you can't have justice.
She's also a Labour peer until today. Why should victims trust a Labour peer to do right by them?
Well, firstly, she's not a Labour peer anymore. That's been withdrawn so that she is
until today
independent voice. But also, as I touched on earlier, she was appointed by David Cameron as the Children's Commissioner. So she's capable. This is about her record, and it's about putting victims first, not politics.
And what if they aren't happy? They weren't happy in the summer about the previous appointments, were they?
Well, there has been some controversy around this, and speaking to the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, she's really clear that her door is always open to victims because they come first in this.
So if they don't want her there, for whatever reason, you'll find a new chair, will you? Or will you carry on?
Well, I'm really confident in Baroness Longfield's capability to conduct this investigation, which will be wide-reaching. You know, we're going to uncover that truth and also hopefully lead to more police action, because it could uncover more evidence of crimes that are ongoing.
Baroness Longfield said at the Times Education Supplement in October, she said the need to promote racial inclusion is too often being overlooked. Will she be the right person to go off that really difficult area of the racial element of these crimes?
It is a really difficult area, but it's also very important. And what we won't do is turn away from this, and it's about ensuring that if there is a link between ethnicity, between race, between culture, that we identify that so that we can deal with it, whether it's because you know, one of the reasons that the perpetrators are committing this crime, or one of the reasons that some have turned away from it. We need to get to the bottom of it, and I'm confident we will.
You're starting the inquiry in 2000. What about the victims that we've spoken at the channel who were victims of grooming gangs before 2000. What about their voice?
Well, it's important that we hear as many voices as possible.
So why 2000?
And there are terms of reference on this, but that is open for consultation until March next year. So, of course, they can feed into that as well.
£65 million, a lot of money, but we know how much public inquiries can cost. Is that the ceiling, or could that be increased if you find the scale of this problem is much wider than you thought?
Well, it remains to be seen, but I'm confident that the Home Secretary sees this as one of the top priorities. So, look, I'm sure if more funding is needed, that she'll battle for that.
And how many local inquiries might be set up? The panel oversees them?
It could,
more than a dozen?
There's no end to this in terms of we will go, or the investigation will go where the evidence takes it. So there's no cap on that. And if there's evidence of a crime and a grooming gang scandal taking place, that's where it will go.
It was announced in January that Oldham would have a local inquiry, and then it's taken until December to scrap that to provide the town with an updated local investigation. Will you apologise to survivors in Oldham for this year of uncertainty?
Well, it needed Baroness Casey, obviously, to complete her review and make this recommendation, and we're going 100% the right way with this by conducting an independent national grooming gang review. And look, I myself will say to any victim that has been wronged, of course we're sorry, everybody's sorry, and this is why we have to get to the bottom of this, because without the truth we can't have justice.
The inquiry will report by March 2029, the eve of maybe the next general election, if you go full term for your parliament. Will it definitely report by then? These things can go on, can't they? We saw with the bloody Sunday inquiry, and then no one ever gets the real justice they feel they deserve.
They can go on, and look, Shabana,
so
the Home Secretary, made it really clear in the House this is a 3-year time limit, and any politics, any general elections will not get in the way of delivering for the victims.
If I can quickly ask about some current news. Yesterday, 2 migrants who arrived here illegally were found guilty of raping a 15-year-old girl. Are you, as a government, making Britain less safe for women and children?
Well, I'm disgusted by these crimes, as I'm sure you are and all of the viewers, and it's important that anyone who commits these crimes is deported, and that I'll make it my mission to make sure people like that aren't in this country.
Mike Tapp, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the final one, which is going to play out in January or December. Mike Tapp, you're the Immigration Minister. Over 40,000. Mike Tapp there. In 3 years there, of course, that reports back on the eve of the general election, possibly. Will that be delayed? He said not there. Mark that tape there, Martin. They can't slip on that. And, of course, 65 million could be expanded if they need to. The police can go where they like, and Labour peer can be trusted with the inquiry. We'll see how that plays out with victims this week. And just finally, while I've got you, Martin, the Home Office have confirmed to us that the Sex Abuse Victim and Survival Panel that had been set up, the survival panel that had been set up for the victims will wind down in January. They also said that would happen, but it's confirmed by the Home Office that will wind down in January. The next 4 months are crucial in getting this set up. Lots of scrutiny, I think, on the new chair and her team.
OK, we've already heard that some of the survivors aren't happy about the appointment of Baroness Longfield. They don't believe it can be politically neutral. And
it's up to her to convince them.
Yeah, exactly. And if this report does drop just before the general election and it is withering about the Labour Party, wow, could be explosive. Chris Hope, superb as ever. Thank you very, very much for getting us Mike Tapp there. Coming up, we'll be discussing whether the UK is still just about a Christian country. But meanwhile, if in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's not just the UK seeing some unsettled weather at the moment. It's also been unsettled for much of the week in Cyprus. That continues into Wednesday. And the trailing weather front from Storm Bram brings thicker cloud and some showery rain into the Canary Islands, as well as much of Iberia. This is a slow-moving weather front, so thicker cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain for much of Spain through Wednesday into Thursday. A lot of fine weather through central parts of the Med, particularly Italy, and above average temperatures for the time of year. Plenty of sunny spells.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, you're absolutely right. Spot on. I couldn't help feeling that perhaps it was actually just a joke, and they were going to come back in 2 years' time and say, we took you all in. It was, in fact, a joke. Now we're going to produce something more serious, because it's absolutely hilarious and ridiculous. Commercial suicide, I described it as.
Well, the individual behind it is no more. What would you like to see from the brand, presumably not people with asymmetric haircuts in pink dresses with sledgehammers doing precisely zero to do with cars?
Well, again, absolutely. You're spot on. I mean, it's just totally unrelated to cars at all. There wasn't even a car in the advert. Jaguar was built on style, and that brought passion for cars. That's what made them different. I remember many years ago, a Jaguar executive in the States saying to me, people say, I like my Mercedes, but I love my Jaguar. It's all about passion. Style engendered that. That's what we've got to have. We need to see a proper, more traditional, stylish, real Jaguar that can build on the brand and heritage of the past.
OK, Philip Paulson, I'm going to put you on the spot now. If you're in charge of the next Jaguar advert, what would it look like?
As diametrically opposite and different as it possibly could be from what they produced. I suppose, I mean, I live a little in the past, I admit, although I also think I'm hopefully realistic about the current situation and everything, the present. But I'd like to see the heritage shown. Jaguar were not afraid to talk in the past about their heritage, the Le Mans wins back in the 50s, the E-Type in the 60s. This is what added excitement and luster to the brand.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
It's 5:48. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, according to the Daily Telegraph, a teacher was banned from working with children after telling a Muslim child that Britain is still a Christian state. Now, the primary school teacher was referred to his local child protection board over those comments made to a pupil at a school in London. Well, we can now speak with the vicar at the Christ Church, New Malden, and that's Stephen Kurt. Stephen, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. It seems to me here that the teacher was banned merely from saying the truth. We're just still about a Christian country, aren't we?
Well, I don't know what tone the comment was said with. I don't know what provocation there might have been in the context. I was a school teacher myself, and I know there can be rather unfortunate standoffs that occur. And I am concerned about the free speech implications of this. I am concerned about safeguarding being weaponised. But I suppose what I'm most concerned about is the really unfortunate standoff that can occur between asserting that, you know, Britain is traditionally a Christian country, but Christianity has at its heart respect and love for everyone. It's not exclusive. It's trying to sort of include everyone within that love and respect. And what I regret about these incidents is the way that things so often become polarised, with people on opposite sides throwing rocks at each other, those who want the inclusion of other faiths sort of being hostile to those who want to uphold the Christian traditions of this country. And really, it's not beyond our wit to reconcile those two things together. We are traditionally a Christian country. Of course, we're increasingly post-Christian. But at the same time, a lot of people are rediscovering the value of Christianity. And I think it's really important that we assert that as authentic Christianity, which isn't sort of in any way oppressive, but seeks to show love and welcome and respect to everyone.
Now, Stephen, the incident apparently here was that a group of students were admonished, told off for washing their feet in the sinks in the boys' lavatories. This is a bunch of Muslim teachers got told off for washing their feet, and the teacher just stated that Britain is still a Christian state. Stephen, I put it to you, one of the fundamental pillars of Christianity is forgiveness and understanding. But it seems to me that that is a word not afforded to Christians. It seems to be if you say anything against the Muslim faith, you find yourself in hot water.
I think that can quite often be the case, and I think we have to be honest about that. I think there is a sense that Christianity is sometimes seen as fair game because it's associated with the establishment, and I think we've got to be honest about that. And of course, there's legacy of sort of the history and all sorts of terrible incidents that have happened in the past. But I think it's about cutting through that and saying to the pupils concerned, well, this is traditionally a Christian country, Britain, but growing directly out of that is a love and a respect, or what should be a love and a respect for everyone. And it's very unfortunate, as I say, when these events escalate. They perpetuate division and they set people against each other. And Christianity is meant to be doing the very opposite. As you rightly say, Martin, it's about forgiveness. It's about respect. It's about the dignity of every single person and every single community. And I think particularly approaching Christmas, that's what we've got to work towards.
Can I ask you a forthright question? Do you think there is a new intolerance against Christianity?
I think there has been for quite a while. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, part of Generation X. It was very difficult as a teenager to be a Christian. There was quite a lot of... I think it's a nuanced answer. It's yes and no. What I detect is a newfound respect by a lot of people for Christianity. I mean, I love the fact you have the daily reflection on GBNews by a Christian minister every morning. That would have been unheard of in the 1980s to have that. So it's a mixture. You've got some people really embracing Christianity with a newfound enthusiasm, perhaps others very suspicious of it, often for very good reasons. You know, Christianity has had a very checkered history in this country, and really what we've got to make sure is it's authentic Christianity that we're showing.
Stephen Kurtz, Vicar, we have to leave it there. Thanks for your company. It really means a lot. And Merry Christmas to you, sir. Thank you. Now, coming up next, of course, is Jubes & Co., the queen of primetime debate, all worship at the church of Michelle Dewberry. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. Great programme as always. Well, of course, I want to take a look at this grooming gang inquiry. Many people saying that there are massive holes. Also, tonight, Donald Trump, he's really not holding back when it comes to the absolute state of Europe. He reckons our leaders are weak. He reckons that basically we're going to go off a cliff edge. No kind words that he has to say about Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan reckons it's basically because he's a bit jealous that Americans are flocking to London. I don't want to break it to him, but I don't actually think that that's what the problem is. Matt Goodwin, Steve McCabe and me, I'll be with you in a sec.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobars really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night, and in fact yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential certainly across Scotland for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland, more showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through, they're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users should exercise caution on the M90 Friarton Bridge due to high winds. In North Tyneside, the A19 northbound from the A1056 is closed after a collision, with normal traffic expected soon. In Cumbria, the A590 eastbound has delays due to congestion. Expect similar conditions on the M94 eastbound in Wokingham due to a vehicle fire, with one lane closed. Surrey's M25 is congested at the anti-clockwise entry slip at junction 12. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion. My name is Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.